Adventure Time. Corners of Rooms, Dimensional Portal. There's an episode in Adventure Time that mentions Corners of Rooms so specifically. It even mentions where you go so specifically. There are no coincidences concerning something this exact. I've read many occult books. This is an exact match, but concerning the Corners of Rooms, it has very little to do with books, because I firsthand witnessed this for 6 months straight. You'll have to watch this entire video to hear the details. Season 2, Episode 17 of Adventure Time is entitled Death in Bloom. It aired on February 28th, 2011. My particular Corners of Room incident took place in the year 2011, shortly after the airing of this cartoon. So why am I making a response to an Adventure Time episode that aired back in February 2011? Because I never knew the episode existed. The only reason I'm making this video is because my nephew told me about this episode after I told him about the Corners of Rooms incident that happened to me in 2011. Immediately, the first thing that popped into his head was this Adventure Time episode. He showed it to me about 3 weeks ago, and this is the first time I've ever seen it, and I was blown away. I was like, whoa, that is an exact representation of just a cartoonized version of the gist of what Corners of Rooms are. 2 demonic entities that I lived with for 6 months. I go into detail later in this video on this subject, and if you want to learn more about my 6-month incident, there are previous Corners of Rooms episodes, and there will be more in the future. So my nephew is responsible for alerting me to the existence of this Adventure Time episode. I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm an independent investigator. I'm an occult researcher. I read books because I'm inspired to read occult books and get to the truth of something that happened to me in 2011. In 2011, I found an extreme occult secret. Continue to watch this video to find out more details on Corners of Rooms and how they are featured in an Adventure Time episode. I'm John Razimus. I thank you for watching. Adventure Time. It's a very popular cartoon show you've probably seen. It's written by some really creative people. The artwork is very interesting. The characters are very cool. I mean, there's talking everything. There's a talking Game Boy, talking donuts, talking everything. And my nephew is a big fan. I've only seen a few episodes, but from what I've seen, I'm a fan too. It's a pretty cool show. There are jokes that only adults would really get. They throw that in there, so it's not just for the kids. It's definitely a show that can appeal to adults if you see the underlying meanings. Now, I would never assume there are any super secret occult secrets in the Adventure Time cartoon, and I'm not one of those people that watches cartoons and thinks The Simpsons predicted the future. But I'm not going to go off on a tangent. I'm going to mention this extreme occult secret in the Adventure Time show that my nephew told me about after I told him one of the most obscure, extreme secrets of the occult that I happen to personally know for a fact is 100% authentic. Corners of Rooms is a legitimate phenomenon. It's always existed ever since corners existed, as far as I know. These entities that manifest, materialize, focus their energy, seemingly enter and exit from the corners of rooms is a legitimate thing. I could tell you the nature of these entities in great detail, but I don't want to give away too much as I am writing my first book entitled Corners of Rooms. Why am I not talking about John Teeter or some hoaxing bullcrap this or that? Because in the grand scheme of things, when I'm dead, that stuff is a flash in the pan, worthless waste of time. but something like Corners of Rooms, which the end game of why I'm even writing the book is extremely important, so important that I believe the book will hold up as something worthwhile, worth having had been written about after I'm dead. And that's the perspective I'm approaching Corners of Rooms. It's for future generations to see, hey, there is something here. I'm going to investigate further. So perhaps this is an introduction into the investigation of Corners of Rooms. And I believe I'm the first person to really see this pattern appearing over and over and over. I saw it firsthand for 6 months straight. I talked about that in the previous Corners of Rooms episodes. Adventure Time has an episode my nephew told me about. The episode is called Death in Bloom. It's Season 2, Episode 17. I researched the paranormal, the occult, the supernatural, and Corners of Rooms is a highlight which no one has ever noticed the pattern of, as far as I know. But the people who wrote the Death in Bloom episode, or the person specifically, I believe, at least heard about Corners of Rooms vaguely, fleetingly, in an occult book somewhere down the road. So, Death in Bloom. Adventure Time is written by a very talented team of writers, but there are so many of them. Let's take a look at the full writing credits. It goes on for a couple pages. But to look at the specific writers of this specific episode, Season 2, Episode 17, Death in Bloom, the actual writers are only this handful, which is actually a good number. Mark Banker. It says story by Kent Osborne, Patrick McHale, Pendleton Ward, Cole Sanchez, and Jesse Moynihan. Interestingly, the last guy is the one who wrote the Corners of Rooms specific part of this particular episode. Let's go through this episode a little bit and how I found out that that is the case. Adventure Time, Corners of Rooms, Dimensional Portal, Death in Bloom, Season 2, Episode 17. These are the writers. I reached out to as many writers that are on Twitter that I could, and I asked them the same question. I said, hi, do you know who wrote the Corner of Room part of the Death in Bloom episode? Thank you. And the response I got was from Mark Banker, was the first to respond. And Mark Banker, being the comedic writer of a comedic show, which is very funny, he gave me a comedy response. Don't remember the room corner part, but if it was good, I'll take credit. If it was bad, pretty sure he was someone else. Anyway, in the episode, Finn and his lovable dog mutating plasma ball of a creature friend, they have a dilemma on their hands. And watch the episode if you want to know all the details, but I'm just going to focus on the Corners of Rooms part and where that leads. They have a dilemma. They need to go to death, or the land of the dead, or the spirit land, or hell perhaps. They just need to get to a place people go when they die. And lo and behold, Peppermint Butler shows up, and he's like, oh, here you guys want to go to the land of the dead. I can help you with that for a price. A price we'll negotiate later. And Peppermint Butler is a little bit of an evil guy, if not the most evil guy on the whole show, my nephew told me. And he has a sure way to get Finn and Jake to the land of the dead. And he's willing to reveal and divulge this secret of how to get there and full access, portal straight to hell, pretty much, if they make a deal, which the details will be talked about later. And what is this miraculous way that you get to the land of the dead? None other than staring at the corner of a room. Not only that, but you have to cross your eyes. So you stare at the corner of the room and you have to cross your eyes. And to be honest, this is all strictly occult related information. The crossing of the eyes is a cartoon exaggerated form of getting in a trance and focusing on something until something happens. It's a legitimate occult practice that black magic practitioners use when they want to contact spirits, when they want to be pulled out of their body and taken to other dimensions, including a pseudo land of the dead. Specifically in Haitian Vodun, popularly known as voodoo, which came from Africa originally. These voodoo witch doctors, they legitimately, and this is not a joke, they get in a trance. They have these particular designs drawn on the dirt. They use rum and appease the spirits with different things, like killing chickens, for example, very controversial. And then anyone who steps on the pattern are pulled out of their bodies. And I'll even go further as to say that these voodoo practitioners do know about corners of rooms, but more specifically, only the highly initiated experts on the subject even know about corners of rooms. So not even all Haitian Vodun practitioners even know about the corners of room aspect. Now, I'm not going to go into details on the corners of rooms concerning those black magic practices, but I will just say the guy who wrote this knew about these rituals, and he put them in a cartoony form. So I wouldn't particularly say it's too dangerous. I wouldn't even say the information is too dangerous in this cartoonized joke version of the occult ritual, which doesn't go exactly like this. You can't stare into a corner of a room and miraculously be taken to the land of the dead, taken to another dimension necessarily. But I can't say that I've tried it, so I do not recommend trying it. I would warn against it. But who is this guy that knew about this staring at corners of rooms? I did receive a second response from a second writer of Adventure Time who did respond to me and didn't give me a joke, but gave me a straight answer. Let's take a look at that response. Patrick McHale gave me a serious answer because he saw that I was earnest by asking every member of the writing team, and they were all in a room, probably brainstorming, storyboarding, coming up with ideas on how to make this episode. And who came up with the corners of rooms part? Jesse. Patrick McHale told me it was Jesse. This is an obscure fact even Adventure Time Extreme Super fans do not know. First, let's take a look at the ritual that Peppermint Butler goes through, and let's see the portal open. They totally cartoonized the process, but what happens in the real world, in an occult ritual even remotely similar to this, is you're pulled out of your body by a demonic entity and taken to an astral realm, alright? It's not literally walking through the wall. Your spirit goes through the wall, so to speak, when it's going into another dimension. But, of course, Finn and Jake physically walk through a portal that opens in the corner of the room, and then that portal closes on up, and it's very, very freaky from the perspective of someone like me who, for 6 months, saw and sensed and was harassed by an entity which was obsessed with the corner of my room. It's a legitimate phenomenon. Whether you think I'm joking or not, I'm not. It's an actual, extreme occult phenomenon involving, in my opinion, demonic entities. Very scary stuff. But Finn and Jake go to the land of the dead. They pop in there. But let's, real quick, before we go into a little bit of where they go, let's take a look at Jesse Moynihan's clip of what Jesse Moynihan's inspirations for writing are. I typed in Jesse Moynihan's name on YouTube, not knowing much about the guy. And literally, the first and only video I clicked of him was a 2014 ALA annual conference, Jesse Moynihan on Film Theory and Influences. Let's take a listen to what Jesse says.
It's good for people to know that you're working on something, especially as a author or comic book artist. My current work is sort of like a melting pot of everything I've been thinking about for the past 10 years or so. It's just that all the like monomyth stuff, which is just the lore of the hero's journey.
And Finn is a hero going through many different journeys in Adventure Time. That's the whole point of the show.
Mythology stuff,
Mythology stuff, which makes sense, and you can even put occult history, sciences into the mythology realm, as many people consider it myth and not fact. But then he says this.
Spiritual stuff.
Spiritual stuff. So Jesse Moynihan studies spiritual books, at least maybe just to get ideas for writing. And I guarantee you 100% Jesse Moynihan came across an obscure occult book which talked about corners of rooms, so vaguely, extremely obscure that it was not a chapter, it was a simple sentence. That's how small the data in books is on any occult rituals involving corners of rooms. We're talking one sentence. I've read many occult books. I've only come across corners of rooms in occult books firsthand, maybe in only 2 or 3 books, which were one sentence at most. Not a chapter, not an entire book. And it's such an important subject, I'm going to put it in an entire book entitled Corners of Rooms. Stay tuned. I'm writing it. It's coming soon. I'm probably going to give away the first chapter for free, just to give you an example of what it's about.
Conspiracy stuff.
Conspiracy stuff, that definitely ties in to supernatural, paranormal, conspiracy type stuff. And definitely there are many that will see this Corners of Room information and they will say, it's just conspiracy. It's like a spiritual, religious conspiracy. But it's not. The fact of the matter is, I know firsthand it's legitimate, but someone like Jesse Moynihan, he might simply be inspired by the writing aspect, the creative aspect of how to incorporate this obscure piece of information he came across. Or perhaps he was directly inspired by infinite intelligence. We don't know how he came up with the idea or how he even ever heard of Corners of Rooms. But somewhere along the line, in the past 10 years, he heard about it.
Just my personal life.
And he puts his personal life into his writing. And he's a very creative writer. He's still one of the most popular writers attributed to Adventure Time. And I say good luck on his future endeavors. But this is a replay of what happens. They go into the land of the dead through a portal in the corner of the room. And concerning where they go to a place with a lot of skeletons. This could be just general mythology that even the other writers came up with. There's a guard guarding the door and looks like he's a giant cyclops. He looks like a dead flamingo. And he says, "Oh, you're alive? You go in this line." And they went in the other line and they just ran on through. But this scene of these skeleton people trying to rip Finn and Jake to shreds is actually straight out of voodoo lore. Straight out of voodoo spiritual practice. Let me tell you what I read about in a legitimate occult book concerning Haitian voodoo. What happens when you're pulled out of your body during these trance-like ceremonies? You're pulled out of your body, a demon enters your body, and a demon literally takes over your body. So where are you during this trance? You're pulled out of your body, taken to a Tim Burton-esque skeleton land. It's one of the reasons they're so obsessed with skulls and this skull motif and decoration stuff, because they see it in this crazy demonic astral realm of the dead. Or maybe it's not demonic. To them, maybe it's a wonderful spiritual place. But when someone rips you to shreds, that's a little scary and a little demonic. But the book I read concerning this subject, it goes beyond them trying to bite you. They actually get an axe and chop your head off. But you can't die. It's simply a renewing, symbolically, of they destroy you by ripping your flesh off your body, chopping your head off, turning you into a skeleton just like them. But you don't die, and you pretty much don't feel any pain. It's more psychological pain. I would think. It's just a hazing from these entities to anyone who is not one of these entities entering their dimension. They haze you big time by ripping you to shreds, and it's something that happens ritualistically on a regular basis. These voodoo practitioners, these Haitian voodoo practitioners, know about this. And even the Eastern religions, specifically Tibetan Buddhism, has a very similar spiritual belief that when you leave your body, you are hazed by these demonic gods who are simply appearing demonic to put you through a test. And this is a similar scenario in Haitian Vodun. These entities put you through a test, rip you to shreds, chop your head off. So I believe Jesse or the other writers either knew about this, or coincidentally it happened to tie together perfectly with the corners of rooms, leaving your body, and going to this land of the dead where these entities haze you, try to rip you to shreds. Finn and Jake escape. They find the castle made of light, and that's where Death lives. And Death is forever creating what looks like a nice sand decoration with his sand rake there. And then it kind of morphs into Death being the devil, where Finn has to challenge him to a music contest. You've seen this a million times. The devil went down to Georgia. Tenacious D did it in their movie The Pick of Destiny. So they kind of mix Death with the devil, further concreting the opinion that it might be hell that they went to. And of course, Death is an extremely awesome rock and roll musician. And Finn, you'll have to see what happens for yourself. But I just wanted to focus on the Haitian Vodun hazing ritual. The fact that where they went is very similar to actual occult information in occult books. It's not just Haitian Vodun, it's Tibetan Buddhism. It gets into some really dark areas of you leaving your body, demons possessing your body. Very scary stuff, not for kids. But the kids don't see it from that perspective. They will see it in a really cartoonized, happy way of Finn and Jake physically walking to a place, having a journey, adventure time, having a great time. They succeed in their quest, and they come back safe and no harm done. But of course, Peppermint Butler, the price he wanted them to pay was their flesh. The same thing that they escaped the hordes of skeleton people trying to bite their flesh off of their body. That was the price he wanted. It's just a joke, but it's kind of scary. Peppermint Butler, very evil guy. Wait a second here. Alright, remember when I said it might have been a coincidence? I take that back. This is not a coincidence. Peppermint Butler is an evil character, or at least what he does is purposefully as evil as possible. As my nephew informed me, he is the most evil character on the show. I'm coming to the conclusion he's probably the devil on the show, the secret devil that doesn't want anyone to know he's the devil. If he's not the devil, he's a high priest of black magic. We're talking the Antichrist type character, extremely crazy stuff. But when I saw these images, searching Peppermint Butler real quick, see, I haven't seen very many Adventure Time episodes at all. He has 3 candles. In African voodoo, Haitian Vodun, Santeria, hoodoo, many different magical spiritual beliefs and practices. 3 candles and human remains is a staple in their practices of summoning entities. The 3 candles will represent 3 gods, 3 demons, or this or that. It will be different from religion to religion, magical practice to magical practice, but it is a very common theme amongst magical summoning of demonic entities. It usually involves incense and being in a trance, and this is exactly what Peppermint Butler is represented as doing. And the triangle in the Goetia, which is European black magic, so they're mixing African black magic with European black magic. But the triangle is the area where the demon is supposed to manifest in the Goetia, which I did mention is a hoax, an ancient hoax. But it's an ancient hoax like the Necronomicon is a modern hoax. You gotta understand, these black magic manuals for how to summon demons, how to go to the demonic realms, they are mixed with hoaxes, purposefully, to discredit them on purpose. So the mainstream will say, don't worry about your kids playing with that. It's a hoax. They purposely put in false information like it was collected by an ancient hermit in a cave, and that hermit's name was so-and-so. And they'll attribute it to Moses or King Solomon or some generic mage, which had nothing to do with it because the author wishes to remain anonymous. The reason the author wishes to remain anonymous is because the true author behind the author is a demonic entity, and they love being anonymous, even through their authors, their human puppets. But these 3 candles, this chicken represents Haitian Vodun, African voodoo, black magic rituals, which I understand is a religious belief and spiritual practice. So I respect the people who were raised in it and consider it a spiritual journey. But from my perspective, having studied Eastern mysticism, African mysticism, South America, North America, European, Egyptian, mysticism is mysticism and magic is magic, and black magic is black magic. The triangle clearly represents the Goetia, Key of Solomon. It's supposed to be a circle of protection, but the triangle is where the demon is supposed to appear. And so the fact that Peppermint Butler is in the triangle is freaky. There's a good chance Peppermint Butler is supposed to secretly represent the devil or a demon or simply a high-ranking black magic sorcerer. So, to be continued, more on Peppermint Butler. But I'm going to continue to investigate corners of rooms. Even though this was a little lighthearted and it focused on a cartoon, this information is legitimate. It's not a cartoon in real life. For 6 months straight, I saw an entity manipulate objects in the corner of my room. 6 months straight, to the point where I had to move every item out of the corner of my room so it couldn't manipulate objects anymore. But even then, I could still hear extreme movement in the corner of that room. I didn't live near train tracks. I didn't live near anything like a fault line. Earthquakes weren't the cause of things moving in the corner of the room. Things being pulled down, curtains being yanked down before my eyeballs, or that green screen is what I'm talking about. A green screen got yanked down twice within the period of a couple minutes. Many objects got manipulated to the point where I moved a stack of boxes, I moved a computer, I moved the tripod of my camera, I moved my stack of CDs or DVDs, and just, we're talking, this entity bothered me, but it always entered and exited the room in the corner of the room. And when I release this information to the world, I have received many people saying, hey, you know what? I have heard of that here or here or here, and I really appreciate people continuing to give me that information so we can piece the puzzles together. I don't know everything. I don't claim to. I'm simply an independent investigator. I will continue to focus on the truth and expose the lies. I thank you for watching. This has been John Razimus with Occult Unmasked. Be seeing you.